Right, so our next speaker. Right, let me just do this. Right, so our last speaker, but certainly not least, is Dr. Simon Clark. Simon is a video maker and science communicator from Bristol, United Kingdom. He finished his PhD in theoretical atmospheric physics at the University of Exeter, where he researched on dynamical stratosphere-troposphere coupling over the Arctic with Professor Mark Baldwin. Prior to this, he also studied physics at St. Peter's College at the University of Oxford, where he obtained his master's degree and specialized in theoretical and atmospheric physics. He has been making videos about various aspects of science and climate on his eponymous YouTube channel. He also regularly streams on Twitch, including problem solving, video games, and painting miniature figures. He is a proud and professional Warhammer painter. Today, Simon will share how he uses YouTube to communicate science to his over 250,000 subscribers. So hi Simon, are you ready?
Yeah, I should be able to share my screen.
Okay, I'll just stop sharing my screen.
I think that's the right one.
Yeah, we can see
it. Okay, cool. So thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this. It's always fun to talk about. This is the side of the job that I get to geek out about, really. At the end of the day, I do this job because I like talking about science and trying to communicate that to the public. So I do that on a variety of forms. I also do a podcast, and as has been mentioned, I live stream. We might come back to that in a little bit. Most of what I do is on YouTube. And so what I wanted to do today was just give you a brief kind of 5-minute intro to what I do, how I do it, and why I do it, I suppose. And then also for the people, this is going to be kind of aimed at the people who are interested in maybe making video content themselves, but also hopefully interesting just from a personal perspective in terms of my journey. And also I'm going to give you some examples at the end of some good science communication that goes on YouTube, which hopefully you can take something away from. So if I go like this, is this going to work? Cool. So as I said, this is going to be focusing a little bit on my kind of journey, but mostly what I want to talk about is how to actually do this effectively, because there's a lot of people that do SciComm on YouTube, and then there aren't many people that do it very effectively, I think. I think I do it sometimes. I don't think I do it all the time, but I've learned a few tricks over the past 10 years of making videos and sort of the way that I think about videos. And then after that, we'll look at some examples. So as I said to begin with, I was originally an academic. So I studied physics at St. Peter's College, Oxford. That is me at my graduation. And I specialized in atmospheric and theoretical physics. That building there is the Atmospheric Physics Department at Oxford. And I basically started doing research because I wanted to learn more. I wasn't happy with what I'd done in my undergrad, and I wanted to take it further. And I did a summer research project, and I kind of got bitten by academic research, and so I ended up doing, as was said, stratospheric troposphere coupling, which is that bottom left picture. In very brief form, we were looking at the polar vortex, which is this big storm that happens in the stratosphere basically every year and has a big influence on northern hemisphere climate. But that was the past life. That was what I used to do. I don't consider myself an academic anymore. I have scientific training, but I am not a scientist really anymore. And that's because I became a YouTuber. And I became a YouTuber before I actually started doing research. My YouTube channel has definitely changed over the years. And originally it was about trying to help kids who are in my kind of situation go to the University of Oxford. So nobody in my family had been to university before me. I went to a state school, which had never sent anyone to Oxford to do physics before. And so I was a very unusual applicant. Oxford and Cambridge, as I'm sure people have probably heard, have quite an elitism kind of problem. Certain rich kids from rich schools will go there, and it is difficult for people from my kind of background to go. So I started making videos just saying, look, this is what my experience was like in terms of my interviews and what questions I was asked and things like that. And then it morphed into talking about research. I won't lie, part of it was also that I was interested in filmmaking. I used to want to be a director when I was a kid. And so I suppose viewed this as an opportunity to do that. And then I ultimately became full time as a YouTuber after doing my PhD and after my research was because I found in the PhD that I was my own boss and I enjoyed managing my own time and setting my own projects and fulfilling them. And that's exactly what you do as a independent, if you're self-employed at any rate, but particularly if you're doing an artistic pursuit like making YouTube videos. So valuing my freedom was why I kind of wanted to pursue this full time. So that's how I have come to this, really. Originally a scientist, but because I was interested in filmmaking, because of a variety of other interests, I ended up doing this as a job. And I think the key takeaway that I want to give you in terms of how to make effective content when it comes to science communication on YouTube is intent and perception. Those are the two things that you have to be very, very aware of. And so many people, when they make videos, will just say, oh, I'm going to make a video on this subject, which I think is really interesting. But then they don't consider how or why they want to do that and who they're targeting at. So that's the audience. What is your intent when it comes to making the content? So you have to ask yourself, when I'm making this video, if I have an idea for, I don't know, if I want to do a video on the climate of Game of Thrones, I released a video on that today, for example. Who exactly am I trying to reach with that video? What do they already think about the subject? So, their perceptions of the subject. And what do they already know about that subject? Because there's no use repeating information that they already know. But also, you may have to convert a hostile audience. A lot of the content I make is about climate science. And I have to sometimes be careful that I am targeting, I do kind of like a Trojan horse approach, where I will make content that is aimed at people who do not believe that climate change exists, and then gradually kind of subvert them as the video goes on. And so you had to be aware of what their perception is of the subject. But more than that, I think you also, particularly on YouTube, have to be aware of how does your target audience normally consume their media? What do they like to watch? And so once you've framed exactly what you want to make, think, who are you trying to reach? What do they already know? What do they think? And then you have to decide on a format. Because not all formats are created equally. This is what I know, which is what I call the Blair Witch effect. But the Blair Witch Project was a 1999 horror film that was incredibly scary for people that watched it because they believed that it was found footage. It was marketed as a tape that was found in the woods, and these people disappeared. And it was all fiction. And I think people, to a certain extent, realized it was fiction. But it was scarier to them because it fitted in with their perception of the home video format. It was the same aspect ratio, the same kind of quality in terms of audio and video. And it meant that it felt real to them. So what you can do in a similar way is to take the kind of media that your audience typically consumes, which maybe for someone like me, I watch a lot of video essays on YouTube, whether that's about science or art or philosophy or whatever it may be. And so I would respond well as a member of my target audience to that kind of content, that format. But if you're trying to reach a younger audience, for example, pre-teenagers who may be spending most of their time watching TikTok instead of YouTube, or watching vlogs instead of video essays, that's the kind of content that they feel familiar and comfortable with. And you can use that format for educational purposes. There are a great many people that use vlog type formats. That's what I used to do when I was at grad school. I made a series about what it was like to study a PhD. Taking that format, which people would normally use to watch to relax and as a casual kind of viewing experience, to sneak education under the radar. They were learning without realizing that they were learning. And that's something which you can do in YouTube. As I say at the bottom, you have to consider other video platforms. I already mentioned TikTok just now. I'm considering getting into TikTok, but I think at the grand old age of 29, I may be too old for it. We'll have to see if my grandpa-like brain can actually understand the app. But also live streaming. I think live streaming is a really an interesting aspect of online video that is completely underused for educational purposes. There's a young audience there who are very engaged, who are willing to watch hours and hours and hours of content daily, and who in a lot of cases will want to learn stuff, but don't necessarily know that they want to learn stuff. And so if you can do what I said before about making them learn under the radar, it can be very, very effective. And also, from a practical perspective, if it's something that you're interested in doing as a career, live streaming is one of these things that can pay potentially quite well. It's also quite reliable. It's basically a coal face. The more of it you do, the more money you get from it. But YouTube is definitely not like that. YouTube is like rolling 100-sided dice every time. And sometimes you're a success and you can pay your rent, and sometimes you can't. It's a very fickle kind of business. So that's what I wanted to say in terms of how you approach the content, how you approach the audience and the format. The other thing which I'd like to drill into is that budget is no limitation. You can make something which will change somebody's life with the most basic technology. If you have a phone, or if, oh wow, apparently it's an invisible phone. If you have a phone, or if you have a webcam, then you are going to be capable of making something which can attract millions of views, as long as you do it in a convincing way, as long as the story, the educational story that you're trying to tell, is good. Because education and storytelling are two sides of the same coin. You have to approach normal education video making in the same way that you approach storytelling. But if you did have a budget, if you're interested in spending a budget on upgrading your equipment, then I would definitely say look at your audio first, much like with a podcast. The people's ears are much more easily offended than their eyes. So investing in a good microphone, like a Rode microphone, or lapel if you wanted to do interviews, or a desktop like a Rode USB microphone if you wanted to do a podcast, would be an excellent first investment. Then look at your lighting, making sure that you are well lit in your footage before you consider getting an expensive camera, which I think is the thing that people tend to rush to. They want to get an expensive camera immediately because they think that will suddenly make them able to make fantastic videos. And it's often the lighting that's the problem, not the camera. That's really the last thing you should consider investing in. And then finally, I realize I've been talking for longer than I should have done. I just wanted to give you some examples of the kind of content I think is interesting and well done science communication content on YouTube. First of all is my friend Andrew Dotson, who is doing a PhD in physics in America. And he does a mix of kind of grad school vlogs and then also some comedy skits and some pure educational stuff like lectures. It's a really interesting channel in using the different formats in the correct way, depending on what he's talking about. Two very famous channels that if you're not aware of, you absolutely should be, Kurzgesagt and 3 Blue 1 Brown, who are two of the highest quality channels on YouTube. They are like the gold standard for what we can all strive towards in terms of professional video content. Kurzgesagt does videos on a whole variety of things, whereas 3 Blue 1 Brown is maths, and it is phenomenally good. So crisp and clear and well done. On the other end of the spectrum, to a certain extent, is Flammable Maths, Jens Fellau, who is a German mathematician who does videos about maths, but using a format that's aimed at younger people. It's using a lot of memes. It's using a lot of references. It's just him in front of a blackboard, but he has a very engaging personality. So that's a classic example of thinking about how your users how your audience perceives the subject. On a similar note, Tierzu, who basically answers the question, what if real life biology was like a video game? If you talk about like a tank build like a bear, or a DPS build like something like a Swift or something like that, and really plays into that, and fantastically well made videos on a very limited set of equipment. I found out from him that he actually used to make his videos in Microsoft PowerPoint. That was how he animated stuff until he got proper editing software not that long ago. But he had like 1 million subscribers at that point. So case in point, you don't have to have amazing technology to be able to make the best quality videos. And on that note, final recommendation, Simone Giertz, who I put inventions because her stuff often doesn't really work. But it's a fantastic example of how to communicate physical science, communicate engineering and project management in a format that is fun and entertaining, and is something that your audience doesn't mind sitting down and just consuming idly as entertainment. So these are all great examples in different ways. But the most important thing, if you're interested in making this stuff, it's all well and good watching all of these fantastic creators for inspiration, but most importantly, just make stuff. The hardest piece of advice, but the truest piece of advice I was ever given, was that the first 100 videos you make will suck. After that, it will get better. But the thing is, you can't jump into immediately making a fantastic video. You can't jump into making a fantastic film on your first attempt. There is no such thing as an overnight success story. Overnight success stories take a very long time. And you will learn from every one of your mistakes when you're making videos that are terrible, as I did, as everybody who is a successful filmmaker will have done. But you don't learn those lessons until you make those mistakes. So just make stuff and get your early projects done and out of the way and learn from them, and then you can move on and you can improve and eventually make really good content, really effective science communication. That was it. Sorry, I have talked for way longer than I should have done. If you'd like to find me, I am at SimonOxFizz on Twitter and Instagram. That's also me on YouTube, but you can just search Simon Clark. And then, because I have no concept of consistency, I am Dr. Simon Clark on Twitch. And that was it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks very much, Simon, for that very fantastic presentation. I think we can accommodate a couple of questions. I have one question from Irene. Having been on both sides of the science and SciComm world, do you think it's time for scientific journals to adopt the SciComm triangle? Bottom line first, background last. What changes could we apply to the traditional scientific writing format to make it more accessible?
I think the main thing would be not putting journal articles behind paywalls. That's a practice that I just think is completely archaic at this point. In terms of, do I think that we should have the inverting the triangle? I don't know. I think that science journals fulfill a different purpose at the end of the day to popular science, to science communication. They are obviously very linked, but as a scientist, if I was reading a paper on an aspect of coupling in the atmosphere that I was studying, I would definitely want the abstract first, which in a sense we do have the bottom line first. We have the ultimate conclusions. But in terms of how I read a paper, I want it in the order of give me the introduction, give me the background, then go into it in that form, rather than inverting the triangle. Because to me, I think the difference between the public and a scientist is that the scientist is data-driven, the public are results-driven. And that is exactly the way it should be. The scientist should be data-driven. And whoopsie daisy. And so putting the data not at the very bottom when it comes to how you present it to scientists, I think is the correct way of doing things.
Right, and two more questions from May and Michael. How do you think social media can change or revolutionize science communication in the coming years? And a very real question from Michael. What if you just simply don't like the way you look for YouTubing? Do you have
Well, to answer that one, it's unusual for me to appear on camera at the moment because I haven't had a haircut for about 2 months because of the pandemic. So I know all too well that you don't have to appear on camera. I recorded a video this week which was just voiceover, and then I'm putting stock footage over the top of it. So basically treating it like a podcast with visual aids. So you don't have to appear on camera. A CGP Grey is a fantastic example of a channel that is just a good narrator and animation over the top of it, or just still images in a lot of cases. In terms of how social media can push science communication forwards, I think the great thing about it is about social media is that it's like what YouTube was back in the day, back when YouTube originally started. The motto was broadcast yourself. It was all about the democratization of media production. The fact that you didn't have to go through a TV company or a film company to get a visual form of your story made. And that's drifted over the years because now YouTube is dominated by talk show hosts and Will Smith and all these kind of people. But social media still has that. Social media has still democratized how we get our creations out to the world. And so I think we have already reached this point where scientists are flocking to Twitter and to Reddit and to Instagram because they realize that this is how people consume media already. This is a format that people are used to and use and will scroll through for hours. And so there is an appetite, there is a hunger for this kind of content out there. And I think going forwards, we're only going to see more of that. What I would want to see is more scientists embracing using social media not just to communicate their results, but also to normalize what it is to do science, to be a scientist, and to broadcast what it is like to, on a day-to-day basis, to do science, like what I was trying to do with my vlogs from grad school. Just, tweeting what your day is like and the kind of what your office looks like, and all these things which actually paint a picture in the eyes of the public about what it is like to be a scientist and to see that it's not some ivory tower. There is no us and them. It is very much a scientist is a person who does science like anybody can also do. And so I think using social media to normalize doing science is the most important thing going forwards, not just for results, but for contextualizing those results in the lives of the researchers.
Thanks very much, Simon. Very fantastic answers. All right. I think we are on the last part of our session. Let me just share my screen. Great. All right, I'm back with my video. So that's a very fantastic session with all our speakers. Thank you very much for sharing your time and your stories and your expertise. I'm sure the your experiences really inspired and made some of us curious. So moving on, I'd like to direct the next part of this session to talk about our community, Science Chat PH. What is Science Chat PH? Para saan ba ang Science Chat PH? Bakit ba namin inorganize ang Science Chat PH at ano ba ang ginagawa namin dito? So I would like to turn this over to BA, who is one of the co-founders of Science Chat PH. Hi, BA.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Hi, my name is B.A. Racoma, and I study meteorology in the University of the Philippines and atmosphere, oceans, and climate in University of Reading. So Science Chat PH was inspired by online science chats and collectives such as Academic Chatter and Open Academics on Twitter. So nagsimula siya as parang semi-viral online networking of sorts. The initial question was, why are we following influencers? Why don't we follow scientists? And then from here, nagpakilala na yung mga Pinoy scientists, science enthusiasts, science communicators. So pinalo isa't isa sa Twitter, and we started the hashtag ScienceChatPH. And dahil madaldal tayo, very talkative ang mga tao sa Twitter, we tried to collaborate, network, and eventually, nabuo yung team. Nag-network lang din kami. We tweeted each other and said, bakit hindi natin i-maintain? Bakit hindi natin i-continue para tuloy-tuloy ang usapan? Kasi at the end of the day, mabubuhay lang ang hashtag at ang interest kung may nagbabantay at nagpapalaganap ito. Ang main goal ng Science Chat PH ay makapag-usap tayo. Kaya nga, chat. So kung meron tayong mga tanong tungkol sa science or sa STEAM for that matter, magtutulungan tayo, mag-uusap tayo kung sinong pwedeng makausap at makasagot ng mga ating mga tanong. More often than not, may makakasagot at pero kung walang makasagot, ang science page ang bahala sa inyo. So that's it for a quick introduction. Si Aiko naman next. How do I, So Aiko will talk about our next plans for the group.
So, hello everyone! Ako si Aiko, isang mananaliksik ng dagat sa University of the Philippines. Inaaral ko ang Physical Oceanography o ang paggalaw ng agos ng tubig dagat. Ako ay 1/5 ng Science Chat team. Kagaya nitong Zoom webinar natin ngayong gabi, we will host a monthly or bi-monthly online session na tatawagin nating Science Hangouts. Mag-i-invite kami ng mga Pinoy scientists at mga experts sa iba't ibang field sa buong mundo para magbigay ng libreng talks na open to the public. Sa mga susunod na buwan, abangan ninyo ang Science Hangouts tungkol sa science communication in different channels. Sa labas ng paaralan, mga libro, palabas, sining, mapa, social media, at marami pang iba. Mapag-uusapan din natin kung paano mag-apply ng scholarship sa mga naghahanap dyan, at higit sa lahat, magkukwentuhan natin ang mga karanasan ng mga Pinoy scientists. So kung may mga request din kayong mga topic na gusto ninyong pag-usapan via virtual hangouts kagaya nito, open ang Science Chat PH na mag-host para sa inyo. Paano namin malalaman? Via hashtag ScienceChatPH. At ikwento yan sa inyo ni May. Pasok, May!
Hi, guys! Naririnig niyo ba ako? Hello. Ayan. So, hi everyone. Ako si May. I'm a PhD crop science student at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Magsasaka by profession, lisensyadong agriculturist. And then, so aside from the monthly meetings, we also have this Science Chat PH like Twitter party. So, ito ay isang science initiative from science enthusiasts para makapag-usap tayo about science discourses. It's an open and safe space where we can talk about our science or talk about things related to science. So it will happen every other week or twice a week, not twice a week, every 2 weeks, fortnightly, according to Jules. So it will be an open and safe conversation about science, research, studies, science communication. Pwede nyo ding tanungin yung mga paborito nyong Pinoy scientists about research insights, topics, especially hot topics in science. For example, COVID-19, farming, and etc. Pwede din kayo magtanong about graduate school applications since some of us are involved or have experience doing graduate school applications abroad and locally. Pwede din kayo magtanong about university cultures, problema sa academics, problema sa love life, paano maghanap ng love life sa grad school, charot. Or lab life, like how to solve lab concerns, hindi mo ma-optimize yung protocol, ganyan. Huwag nyo lang akong tatanungin ng pera. Problema ko din po yun, guys. So, pwede kayo mag-join, #ScienceChatPH. We'll have a Twitter party. We can also answer some of the questions from the chat about today's discussion through a Twitter party. So, ayun, guys. So, pasa ko na kayo kay Pierce.
Hi, Pierce, are you here? Right. Pierce, I think you're on mute. Right.
Okay. Hello.
Okay.
So yeah, so we have other persons chat PH. So still working on it. So there are 3 things we have on the page. So there's one called Ask Scientist, where you can consult or ask some questions to the fellow scientists on Twitter. And then we have Faces of Science, where it's kind of like Humans of New York inspired, where we let them tell their stories about
Hi, Pierce.
around the world. And the third one is, hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay.
Okay,
So
buhay ka na
the
ulit.
third one is Siyensaya. So, so it's where we, kung saan tayo maglalaro at magsasaya at magbabahagi ng mga kaalaman ng siyensya. So next slide, please.
Sorry.
So with that, we'd just like to formally launch our Twitter. So if you guys aren't following it, so bye-bye na kayo sa Science Chat PH.
All right, guys,
Yay!
everyone, and yeah, follow us in our Twitter handle @ScienceChatPH. Huwag niyo din pong kalimutang sagutan ang aming maikling evaluation form para malaman po namin ang inyong pulso sa ating session ngayon at ma-improve pa po namin ang mga susunod naming activities para sa inyo. So pumunta lamang po sa bit.ly/scientifico-evaluate at pagkatapos niyo pong sagutan ay bibigyan namin kayo ng e-certificate sa inyong email na i-register sa evaluation form. So sa aming Twitter account din ay i-announce namin kung paano kayo magkakaroon ng kopya ng presentations at recording ng session na ito. So muli, ako po si Jules Alejandre. Muli maraming salamat po at ingat tayong lahat. Usap po tayo sa #ScienceChatPH and thank you very much to our speakers. Thank you.
Thank you,
Jules,
guys.
can you flash again yung sa evaluation? I-paste ko lang sa chat.
Yeah, so the evaluation is bit.ly/scientifico-evaluate.
Ayun.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Guys,
Bye, salamat.
don't forget
yung-
to stretch.
Yeah. Yung may nagtanong sa chat if we can paste like the copy of answers to questions. Tignan namin kung ma-extract namin yung chat box from the recording and then maybe we can post it on Twitter.